thank you so much for joining us, Nicole, and thanks for being with us here also, Christina.
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Nice to be
Where are you
here.
calling in from?
I think we're both in Florida. I'm in St. Petersburg, and Christina?
Yep, I'm in Winter Park, Florida.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm here in San Francisco, 8 a.m. Monday mornings.
You chose the time.
Yeah, well, we try to choose a time that works for as many people around the world as possible, because yeah, we have people from Europe, people from Asia, people from all over. So you know, we drew the short end of the stick with the 8 a.m. Mondays. But yeah, so I've got a bunch of questions here, and we've actually collected a bunch of questions from our community. And I was thinking we'd do maybe like 30 or 40 minutes of questions here, and then we can open it up to anyone else in the audience to ask questions directly. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All good, yep.
All right, so the first question comes from Rod, who's there in. I see him throwing up emojis, but he had a really great question that was basically, you know, what's it like being an astronaut in the United States? Because you're kind of like half scientist, but also half celebrity, and that's like it's an interesting place to be. Rod says that, you know, in Russia, there isn't as much like a celebrity aspect to astronauts. Like he apparently in his hometown, there's someone who's an astronaut, and he'll just see them like getting groceries. He says that they're pretty shy, and yeah, in Russia they're not so famous. But here in the U.S., I feel like it's quite different. Do you feel like there's like a pressure to represent Earth, or yeah, I guess, yeah, what is it about being an astronaut you think that drives celebrity in the US versus, yeah, in other countries?
Well, I mean, I think I would say that I feel a little bit the same about how Rod was describing what's going on in Russia as it is here. I think astronaut in general has this celebrity aspect to it, and if somebody realizes you are one, they might pay attention more or be curious. But I mean, I'm hanging out at the grocery store and doing all those things too, and live in a neighborhood, and you know, some people know, some people don't. I think it's less likely in the US for the general population to know particular astronaut names unless they're paying attention. But even in Russia, the social media thing has really taken on, and there's some amazing, I mean, there's some cosmonauts there that have like huge popularity, both in Russia but around the world as well. And then I'll just tell you, go to Canada or go to Japan with one of their astronauts. That's where celebrity. There is. I mean, I remember being at the baggage claim at the airport with Julie Payette, and it was like every Canadian knew who she was. Koichi Wakata or Aki Hoshida or these guys in Japan or Naoka Yamazaki, everyone knows who they are everywhere. And that's not what happens here necessarily.
Well, and I was going to say, I think unless you're Buzz Aldrin, a lot of people, or unless you're a diehard space geek, you may not know. But I think what sets you apart when people can't ignore you is when you have your astronaut jacket on. Like if you have a flight suit on, or if you have that blue jacket, that's like your superhero outfit.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And Christina and Jeremy and Reed and Victor might have less opportunity to kind of be under the radar now, just in general. But I think the thing you said in particular, Christina, just this, unless people are already excited about space and following along and, seeing who is it up on the space station right now. In the US, there's not a real knowledge of us. Sadly, I mean, not that I'm, looking to be tripped over like a celebrity, but I think it would be really great if everybody just was aware, like, oh my gosh, these are the people living on the space station. This is the work that's going on down up there, that's all about improving life on Earth. And Paula, what you said about, this, like, feel like we should be representing the planet. And I can't remember the word you used, but I think we feel like it's our obligation, like it's an imperative to be these ambassadors for Spaceship Earth and all the life that we share on it. So celebrity or not, I think that goes with the job, and people are, as astronauts, are not only feeling obligated, but are excited about that as part of the role.
Totally.
Well, and I think I want to add that I think, people expect there to be American NASA astronauts in a way. And I know from experience of, like, when we're out of the country and people realizing they meet you, though, it's also a different awareness, because most countries don't have very many astronauts. That's why those ones are such superstars, because it's just so rare. And I've seen firsthand, like when we're in another country, how they react to you when they realize they're meeting an astronaut, especially if you have your blue jacket on. But even sometimes if I just Nicole doesn't go around telling people I'm an astronaut, but I go with her sometimes saying, she's an astronaut.
She does.
And then I do. And then sometimes people will like react, and you could see though, like this, like shock that they're meeting somebody who did something which seemed amazing and impossible, and that kind of thing. So,
especially when, like, you just look like an old lady to me. Who could you possibly
No.
But it's funny. But I think, I think what you said is, once they become aware. So I think there's just not, and that, I mean, that is another country. So why should they know who, the US astronauts are necessarily, with the number of them that there are? But I mean, even here in the US, it's for the most part, it's a once they become aware kind of thing. It's not like, general public, Nicole's walking on the street, they're going to be like, oh, that's Nicole Stott, the astronaut. They might still do that with Buzz. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Buzz couldn't really go anywhere without us having someone come up to us pretty much all the time. And he wasn't going in the grocery store.
Yeah,
for sure. That almost never.
There might be
happened.
other reasons for that, but yeah.
Yeah, he wouldn't even know what to do in a grocery store. But yeah, I mean, but his reality, like you say, I think what's going to happen with the Artemis astronauts is going to be a whole other level, because it is a different thing too, of knowing that these people are representing humanity to go back to the moon,
and there'll be so many less,
so
fewer of them, right? These missions are going to have, now one of the things that I think is so wonderful, and maybe the fact that it's not this celebrity thing is a good thing, because there's this mix of humanity that really is, I mean, even in a low Earth orbit space station, is representing humanity in like the best way. But they're not a once every 2 year, here's these 4 people going to the moon, like this very focused messaging that we know NASA will do around them. That same kind of thing doesn't happen for every crew that's going to the space station, even though I would personally argue that what they're doing on the space station is equally, and in some ways, maybe more important than what we're going to do when we go back to the moon, as an extension of that. So, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of neat to think about how astronaut in general is considered, but when it comes down to the individual of who that is, the awareness isn't necessarily there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like, well, yeah, now you see on the Tonight Show, you've got the Artemis crew, and yeah, they're making a very big like PR movement around, going back to the moon.
They need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it needs to be at the level of that Apollo was. I mean, but we didn't have as much competition back then for news coverage. But my hope is that, they can be on everything that you can imagine, to try to gain more support from the broader public, who maybe isn't paying attention to space every day,
Which is something, I mean, Christina, we've talked about this before, where I think about where I'm living right now in Florida, across the state from the launch site, at Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral. You're half a state closer to that. And still, it's pretty rare on our local news stations for us to see something purposefully speaking to the pretty frequent stuff that's going on in space and launch wise. I mean, you've got to look for it, and I think that just like what they're doing with the moon, there should be equal excitement about all of what's going on in space, in a way. Especially, you would think when you're in the location where it's happening, that would just be part of what you're hearing about all the time. And so I'm thankful, Pablo, MoonDAO folks, what we're going to do on this zero G flight, that it might just open up awareness to folks that weren't aware before of all.
Oh, we might have lost you there, Nicole.
Oh, okay. Somebody was calling.
Oh, there you are.
So I got it. Yeah. Anyway, we're off the earth for the earth, and we should be talking about it all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's partly why Nicole and I have joined forces for Space for a Better World. So that's the thing. It's like, I realized how all the years of traveling all over the world with Buzz and meeting so many different people, first of all, the impact of space on our lives and how it inspired that generation. But then how everyone who benefits from it now is using space technology or space innovations in some way or another, and they just aren't aware of it. And that's where we think, okay, so maybe we can help translate this story in a way that if you're not already a part of the space community, we can show you how you are impacted or how you might want to be a part of it if you just knew more about it and weren't intimidated maybe by the technical space world. So, this is a big part of why we're always trying to do things to reach out to people who are not already, inside space. The diehards, and don't get me wrong, we love the diehard space geeks too. But, to be able to get more people who maybe didn't think space was an option for them, we really, really want to invite more of those people in. And so that's what Space for a Better World is, connecting the space curious to the space serious. And so, most people are space curious, and I don't think it's a hard sell. But especially having an astronaut as a partner on it, and getting people to see that even an astronaut is as excited about going on a zero G flight as I am. I think sometimes that's, people are surprised by that.
Yes, we are, because we don't get to do a lot of them. I mean, as training, I get from people like, oh, you get to go do that zero G airplane all the time, and it's like, nope. Like, one familiarization flight is what we do on that, and then unless you sign up for, and there's not a whole lot of opportunity to do this, like sign up for the science missions that are going on those airplanes to test out something for space, you're not going to be doing those flights regularly. So it's fantastic.
And even less than when you did them, because so that's the exciting thing about this flight is that Doug Hurley, who wasn't able to join us today, but he had just come back and just left NASA actually, and I saw him somewhere, and he said, hey, I want to go on one of your zero G flights. And I was like, really? You just got back from space? He said, no, it's not the same. I've only ever done one zero G flight. So I say this because, this flight that we're doing is his second zero G flight, like taking away his space flight, time of actually being in space. But he's just as excited about doing it, because he's only ever gotten to do one zero gravity flight before. So this is those of us those who get to join him on this get to see him be a little kid in a way that maybe he hasn't been able to be on his, space missions, having to be a serious astronaut. And the cool thing about him too is that Nicole and Doug were in the same astronaut class, right?
Oops, I have to push the button. Yep. And he, like the rest of us, is always looking for the opportunity to behave like a kid. And it's going to be so much fun. Yeah, he and I are in the same class. Actually, his wife, Karen, is also in our class, which is kind of cool. And one day we'll get her on that airplane too, maybe all together. It is going to be so much fun. And I'm thinking in my head of the picture of that flight our class got to do. And I'm going to go find that and see if I can find the look on Doug's face in that picture to compare to what we experience coming up.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask, yeah, how does it differ? I guess having done both, having been in the ISS and a zero G flight. I mean, obviously zero G, you know, every parabola, it doesn't last as long. But I'm curious, you know, yeah, what are the differences in your mind? Like, if we were to try to imagine going from zero G to ISS, what are yeah, what would we need to do?
Well, that it just keeps on going, you know, that you just keep on floating. And that's what's so cool about it. And I think that's what's cool about the zero G flight too, is that you really do get this experience, this feeling of what floating, flying in a more continuous sense is like. I mean, you really can if you allow yourself. And I would say the key thing to really appreciating it the most and feeling like if you would if you were on a space station is to chill, like to really just be mellow and to not and it's hard not to do this at first because your body floats up and you're like, ah, you know, your legs and arms want to, you know, flail around and you want to try to, you know, swim to get into the right position, or you feel like it should take more, you should have to exert yourself more to get yourself in a position, when it really is like a very great, graceful, or should be, to really appreciate and get the most out of it. You should always be thinking about what's the least I need to do to get in this position. What's the most relaxed I can be while I'm experiencing this? What's the just touch my finger on the floor of the airplane and float up to the ceiling kind of thing I can do, versus feeling like you have to push off and that you have to be, you know, kind of working it. It really is in the best way, it's a graceful, very Zen thing if you let it be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, I think, well, Ari in our community has done zero gravity flight before, and he was saying that it was almost like a reset of his entire body. That he felt as though he had gone back to some state that he always knew existed, but that yeah, it was like he was going back home somehow, you know,
Yeah.
which was so
Well,
interesting to me.
yeah, I mean, that's a really cool way to think about it, because I think you are. I mean, where we started out, we're floating and and it was probably pretty chill and, you know, comfy. And I think the same thing needs to happen here. I mean, to really, really get the most out of it. I guess it's about thinking less about it and just kind of going with it. And um
Yeah, so I was with Nicole the first time I did my first zero G, and I was like a giddy idiot. I was just bouncing all over the place. And she actually has the video of my very first, I think it was probably the moon, or maybe the Mars one. And it's so funny because I am just like a giggling kid. Now, I will say it's taken me a few flights now to do what she's talking about, though. Although the last flight I did, I have to say people picked it up much better than I did, which is that you just start floating if you don't even try, like once you're in zero gravity.
yeah. And that's, you know, the thing about it is, I think it's another one of these kind of perspective things too, right? We get so used to the way we move. It's natural for us, right? It's all pretty much two-dimensional. We're walking in a straight line, we're climbing upstairs, we're, you know, we're moving this way very purposefully, but very naturally. And now you're in a place where it becomes three-dimensional, right? And you have to, so this feeling of your body moving like that, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so foreign at first. But I think, like Ari was saying, if you just kind of let it happen, and, you know, versus trying to push up and fly fast and flip and roll and all of that, if you just let it happen and see what that does for you, how it elevates you, like literally will lift you off the ground without you having to do anything, then it becomes, I think the adaptation is much quicker and much more graceful than, you know, trying to fight it or help it. Is I just can't wait to see how, you know, how everybody responds to it again. And there's joy. I mean, it's total joy in that whole experience.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like well, so there's the joy aspect of it, but you really like lived through it. So you would sleep in zero G, you would eat in zero G, exercise in zero G. What was it like doing just like those everyday tasks? Like do you miss that, or was it like impossible? What I guess, yeah, what things were very difficult to do that you didn't expect would be, so tricky in zero gravity?
I think the most difficult thing in all of it is just keeping track of your stuff. Um, everything was different in some way, the way our bodies respond to it, like internally and externally, just the way the fluids shift in our bodies, the way we physically are floating, the way we have to move, the fact that I mean, one of the things that was so neat to me was how adaptable we really are to these kind of extreme environments where you're in this place where your brain and your body figures out, oh man, Nicole doesn't need bones or muscles anymore to survive in this environment. So yeah, we're not going to waste any energy maintaining those for her. So we have to, in that place, we have to very proactively, very deliberately counteract that, because you go into like this accelerated osteoporosis kind of thing where brain figures out I don't need bones anymore, so it's not going to maintain them. And so there's that side of it. But then there's also the how quickly we adapt to that three-dimensional living space, that environment, and the way you can move and become graceful and just, you know, and that is the joy there. The keeping track of your stuff, oh my gosh, that's why Velcro has such a great reputation, in space, is that you've got it on everything. I had it on my pants. I had strips of Velcro sewn onto my pants so I could just stick tools and my pencil and my food bags on to my pants to float around and carry them. So that floating thing is a little difficult for keeping track of your stuff, but everything else, it's just like it was part of the adventure in this place where everything's different, but not necessarily more difficult. The way you move, the way you eat, everything's floating. So you don't have a plate of food. You're just using your long handled spoon to scoop out whatever you're going to eat out of the bag. And, painting, it's like everything floats. So you're not dipping your brush into a cup of water, you're dipping it into a floating ball of water. And the way your hair looks and how you wash it, and that you're not taking a shower, but oh my gosh, you still feel just as clean as you would if you were in a running water shower, which I will caveat with, still highly recommend the running water shower. But to be able to float a ball of water in front of you and stick your arm through it and make this glove of water on yourself that you can then smush the soap around in and then rinse by putting your arm through another ball of water, or squirting the water on your body, in a way that it just coats your body with water. I mean, that's pretty cool to be, participating in, but it's not more difficult. It's just different. And so that whole floating thing just makes everything different. And I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, I always love
Yeah.
watching the YouTube videos of people playing with water and zero
Yeah.
gravity. And yeah, I think water especially is just one of those things that is just so beautiful. And then the
Yeah.
surface tension and all of that, it just seems like it's just this like magical, yeah, like physics. I don't know. It just blows my mind, that
Yeah.
stuff. Um, I also wanted to ask you, so how do you feel? Okay, so the age of Starship is almost here, right? Within a few months, we'll be seeing these things start to attempt to go up, and if successful, the cost of sending things up to space is going to go down dramatically. So how do you feel like this future space exploration universe where things are a lot cheaper to send up is going to look like? And like how do you think these new launch vehicles are going to affect how the everyday person interacts with space? Do you think that like something that we think a lot about at MoonDAO is how do we kind of start to get people from all over the world to start interacting with space, which used to be this extremely expensive thing, and now it's becoming miniaturized. It's becoming a lot cheaper. I'm curious from your perspective as someone who's interacted with so many people and kind of gotten perspectives from people from all over the world. What do you think? Like, how do you think this new age in space, space travel or access to space is going to affect the everyday person?
Well, I mean, I'm really excited for it, and I'm, maybe this is selfish, but I'm excited that this is going to be happening in my lifetime, right? That we really, I think all of us on this call are going to be experiencing this in one way or another, which we might not have actually, even though we were hopeful for it, we might not have thought it would happen. And I think it's going to happen. And that's so cool to me. And I think it is because there'll be more access for sure for more and more people. I think even though the price of all this stuff is coming down, it's still going to be a while before, it's like the airline where this significantly increased number of people will have easy access to space travel. But in line with the whole off the earth, for the earth, motivation behind, which is behind most of this, is that now, because we can lift things so inexpensively off the planet into space, I think that we're going to actually be able to bring to life things that are even more powerful when it comes to the solutions to our, planetary challenges. Um, one of our favorites to talk about is this idea of like space-based solar power. I mean, the argument forever was that it was too expensive to lift the stuff off the earth to get it to space, to be able to assemble this power station, orbiting the earth or at, its position above the earth. And that's not an excuse anymore, right? And so these kinds of solutions, I think, are going to come to bear in ways that are going to be more visible as options and for the general public, and to where that awareness will have the general public saying, why the heck aren't we doing this space-based solar power thing, where it'll just become part of the way we're living our lives and a consideration for how we should be solving our problems. Even though all along right now, everything we're doing in space is about improving life on Earth, these really big things that were prohibitive before because of launch cost as one of the barriers, those things, that goes away now. And in my mind, there's no excuse for not doing this big stuff now and solving these big problems, other than somebody saying, you know, um, perhaps economically that they're not going to be making money off of what they're already doing. So we've got to get this big shift in people's minds too, to how space really does offer this opportunity for solving some of our greatest, issues here on Earth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also I feel like there's the a piece on collaboration. So like on the ISS, you were working with Russian cosmonauts. I mean, it's sad to see the state of affairs down here on Earth now, um, but I feel like back then that was always something that was really interesting to me. Is that um, despite our differences here on Earth, that everyone just sort of gets they understand why space is interesting. It brings out that sort of inner child. Everyone understands, this sort of curiosity around, why we're here, why like these fundamental questions about human nature, and I think that really does unite us. But at the same time, I feel like there are all these challenges and roadblocks being put up, preventing people from collaborating and working together on space. I really wanted to get your thoughts on sort of like ITAR regulations and whether or not you think that they serve humanity, and or whether you think that do you think that they're necessary, or do you think that there is maybe a better system that could be put in place? I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. What was it like working with people that were Russian on the ISS? Were there things that you couldn't tell them about, or how was that experience like? Yeah.
No, I mean, when we're, both from the standpoint of the tens of thousands of people down here on Earth that are, supporting these international space programs, that are making that have come together to make this whole International Space Station program work. And, I think multilateral is the word I would hear all the time about. Oh, we've got this multilateral commission about how we decide who the crew members are going to be. We have this multilateral group that figures out which mix of science is going to be happening on the station across the different partners, who's going to get what hardware up there and when, and how those flights would all work out. And it was incredible to me how this multilateral, this international group of people could figure it out, right? Okay, we've got this greater mission off the Earth for the Earth. We all want to play in this. Here's how we're going to do it, not why we can't do it. Right. And it's such a wonderful model for how we should be living. I'll just throw it out there, right, as crewmates and not passengers down here on Spaceship Earth, right? Orders of magnitude, certainly from the numbers of people and all of that. But it is such a wonderful model, and, in the simplest form, too. And on the space station, it's not like the Russians are only in the Russian module and the Europeans can only go in that one module and the Japanese. Everyone is on the space station as a single crew with a single commander representing, even those are only 6 or 7 people at any given time on the station. All 6 of the or 7 of those people are representing all 15 of the partners that are part of the program. So it's intentionally designed, at least, as far as I knew, and I don't want to put any doubt otherwise, but as far as I knew and understood as a crew member on board that spacecraft, everything was one crew, one space station. And certainly, I would be working on one payload more than my cosmonaut colleague might be, or, just the way they would divvy up the work. But there was nothing like I had to go into some black box to do this payload because I couldn't show my Russian colleagues. That it was intentionally designed not to be that way. Now, what that does do, and that's why all of these commercial space stations and things are attractive to, to a lot of people, is that because of just basic IP stuff, some of the developers of certain scientific instruments or pharmaceuticals or, technology in general, they don't want anybody, not even another US crew member, to see what is being worked on, and certainly not to share that with some other company because, they want to develop it and, and be successful. So there's this kind of International Space Station with the government agencies and the science that goes on across all of that with all of the partners, versus how do we evolve to a commercial marketplace or activities in space where there are going to be, just because of the nature of it, companies that don't want to share what they're doing. And how do we facilitate that? It's all got to happen. But man, I just loved being part of the crew that I was with on board that station. And I loved the opportunity during training to travel to all of those different places and learn more about, not just their space program and their hardware, but to meet my crewmates' families and the people I was training with, and and to bring my family with me to all these places and get a better sense of how we were all going to come together. And I think that's what being a crew is all about. And ITAR, I don't even want to. You need to ask my husband about that. I think we do need something like that. I think we can't ignore the potential, for how technology is managed, but to say that I could tell you whether it needs to change or be different, I'm just not that person.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we always need to be cognizant of the risks and ensure that all of the technology is not being used to hurt people, for sure. But it's one of these things that that can really unite us so much. Is this curiosity and this love of space. Something that we've been struggling a lot with in the past couple of months is we ran basically a sweepstakes inside of our community for who got the ticket to go to low Earth orbit, or sorry, not low Earth orbit, suborbit. That's funny. And with Blue Origin, and the winner was someone from China. And it's been just this heartbreaking experience of trying to get him a visa and him getting rejected by the U.S. government just because he's from China. And yeah, that it's stuff like that that kind of it just upsets me a little bit. You know, it's like here's this thing that like everyone from all over the world like dreams about, you know, and here's a guy that won this experience, and just because he's from, you know, a certain part of our magical beautiful space rock, you know, like he can't experience this. And um you know, like it's sad. You know, it's really sad. So yeah, I feel like I hope that this love of space can, you know, unite people from all over the world and get us to understand that, hey, just because you're from this part of the rock doesn't mean that you're a bad person or anything like that. You know, well, a lot of astronauts talk about the overview effect. Did you experience that when you were on the ISS? Did you feel like there was this kind of like oneness and togetherness of everyone on Earth? I mean, it sounds um, very mystical and magical, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, although I'll tell you, when I flew the first time, I had never heard the words overview effect before I flew the first time. I hadn't had the, you know, honor, pleasure of meeting the amazing Frank White at that point either. But I think there's just something that everyone who has had the chance to, you know, experience the planet from that really incredible vantage point, and we all might speak to it a little bit differently, but what you just said, this idea of unity, of interconnectivity of everything, you know, not just everything on this planet, but which is like, oh my gosh, we live on a planet, you know, that's a reality check that comes from it for sure. And but the interconnectivity of the planet in space with you know, with everything else, and how does that all you know, spread out around us. And um you know, just this sense of oneness, like you just said. And you know, in hindsight, I can say, oh my gosh, you don't need to go to space to experience that. There's awe and wonder around us every day that if we open our hearts and minds to it, we can have those same kind of feelings about who and where we are in space together. You know, I mean, something as simple as waking up in the morning and when you put your feet on the ground, you're like, wow, I'm on a planet. You know, and really considering that for a couple minutes and how that should play into your daily life, you know, for sure. And it is beautiful. There it is, almost like overwhelmingly, impressively beautiful to see Earth from space. And yeah, highly recommend that as well. And so, you know, thank you, Starship, and all others that will help us provide that opportunity for more and more people. Um, and you mentioned a suborbital flight. You know, I believe if that 5 minutes looking out that way, allowing yourself to, you know, bring that in, process it a little bit, maybe, um, and go on zero G flights like we're about to go on to go do the flippy doos and the, you know, spinning around and all that. But when you are on a spacecraft, your face should be in the window.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to do the suborbital or go actually into space, but I do tell people, if you want to experience weightlessness, this is your best opportunity, right? To do a zero gravity flight this way, you get a lot of opportunities to float, and it's pretty addicting. I have to tell you, this is going to be my 5th flight I'll
Yeah.
be doing. Yeah. want to be like an expert pretty soon. But
Yeah.
usually what ends up happening is I start filming everybody else and I'm just floating around like then filming other people.
Which people
They tell me
appreciate.
not to do that.
No, people appreciate.
Well, and people tell some people though, like they're oh, don't do that, you're gonna get sick. I do not get motion sickness at all. So it doesn't bother me. I was made for that.
Yeah. Well, it is, but I mean, you know, you think about it, and I know you would not do this. You'd have your face in front of the window. That suborbital flight, that I don't even know what the minutes are, 6, 7, 5, whatever it is. Loosen that seatbelt and float in front of the window. That is, you know, high five your crewmates and then go to the window, because
Yeah,
to
I wouldn't
waste
even
that
float.
time, waste that
Yeah.
time flipping and bouncing around. Nope.
Heck, I do that on a plane now
I
where my
know.
face is in the window half the time and I'm like, shoot, I should be working right now. And I'm like taking videos of clouds and things like that. But it's just I imagine that being just amplified like drastically from that point of seeing the blackness of space and the thin blue line. All of that would be so incredible.
Yep.
So we've got about 15 more minutes. So I wanted to open this up to the rest of the listeners here. So yeah, if anyone has a question or anything that they want to ask Nicole or Christina, please request and we'll have you up here. We will give priority to our MoonDAO members. So just throwing that out there. Great. Okay, we've got Rod. So yeah, Rod actually he inspired one of the first questions that we asked, and yeah, he's had a bunch of questions here in the comments too. Great to have you here, Rod. How's it going?
Thank you so much. Everything is great. I'm a systems engineer, and I'm interested in requirements management, model-based systems engineering, concurrent engineering. And I want to say a huge thanks to Nicole. Actually, we met in real life 6 years ago. You came to Moscow and you held a small presentation in a museum. So I've reached you after the presentation and asked you to respond me on Facebook. So you've responded, and thanks for that. It really helped me to be here.
Aw. Well, you know, that is one of my very favorite places, is that cosmonautics museum there in Moscow, and close to the heart with all of that. So thanks for being there.
I have a question. So, what are the main challenges in building and controlling a robot for lunar exploration, like building a robot in a decentralized manner that you can envision?
Wow. I think that it's going to be well, you know, I mean, we do that now, right? We've had that kind of robotic exploration going on for a long time in different places. You know, Mars, we seem to have really figured it out. I think that, you know, longer term, it's going to be like the extended life of equipment, right? In an environment that doesn't really want stuff to work well, right? You know, you think about the moon with the regolith and the you know, just the terrain you're having to go through. it doesn't want it, let alone having spacesuits, you know, last for a long time. I think just the service life of things, as we have more and more of a permanent presence in that place, is going to be elevated. Like, how do we keep things working for an extended period of time? And
I'm uh, uh, I'm sorry. I just we're running out of time. My question was related to MoonDAO. Like at MoonDAO, we have members all over the world, and we want to build the lunar infrastructure together. Like right now, I'm in Thailand, and I know that we have people from Philippines, from Hawaii, from Australia, a lot from Asia, from Africa, everywhere. We have people all over the world. And how can we build a robot together and control it on the moon? So, what are the main challenges for us as a decentralized society?
oh, wow. Well, I think doing things like this, I mean, finding ways to centralize your communication that, distributes the workload, first of all, for how you're going to deploy these things, but then from everything from design to operation. It's just a matter of not necessarily having to be in the same physical place, but coming up with your rules of engagement and how you want to deploy that. And I mean, the same thing's going to have to be true when we're working between Earth and the moon. You could consider that a decentralized kind of activity as well. And I don't know, I think the communication side of it is going to be the biggest thing.
Have you trained remotely together, for example, with the Russian cosmonauts? Like how it was on your side, how you managed to do that remotely, if you had that experience?
Well, we did a little bit, but I mean, one of the real joys actually of training for a space station crew was the opportunity to travel together to all of the different locations, to Europe and Canada and Russia and to the US and Japan, and to be able to do that in a way that you're physically present with each other as well. But it wasn't unusual to have like a remote class. I mean, it's kind of hard when you're trying to figure out how to work on hardware together if you're not in the same place. But if it's a subject that allows you to do a class online, you can easily do it. Or you can be studying independently on those things and then come together for the physical activity stuff that you need to do with the hardware.
Awesome. How's it going, Gonzalo? How you doing?
Hello there, doing well. Great initiative, thanks. My name is Gonzalo, Nicole, and Christina. I'm a space evangelist. That means trying to bring space to Earth and then getting it there, both for STEM education and also building up that knowledge in companies. My question has to do with the following: how was your workload at the International Space Station? How was that manageable over time, and how long did it take you to adapt into that? And the second one, just to close, is how do you see transversal training between zero G and LEO destinations?
So for the first thing, I was on the space station in 2009 and 2011, and we were still working out as the crews got bigger and bigger. We were working out what should this daily routine be like? How much control should the ground, mission control, have over how we implement our activities and stuff? And it was kind of evolving because we were discovering that, as much as the mission control team might want to have every 5 minutes of our day scheduled in the order that they want it to happen, it was becoming clear that that was not necessarily the most efficient way to do it, to get the most, get the most work out of us in that time. And we were all very committed to wanting to get as much work as we could during the day done, especially for the scientists who were counting on us to implement their science up there. And so it evolved a little bit in that time that I was there, from this literally every 5 minutes scheduled throughout the day, including here's your 27 minutes for lunch, here's the time you'll be on the exercise equipment, here's what the end of your day is, and hopefully you've finished everything in between. And that became a little less prescribed and more about, here's the things we are expecting will get done today. And of those 10 things, here's the 3 that have to be done in this order. So where there was a requirement for something to be done at a particular time or in a particular order, we would get that information. But otherwise, we were allowed to kind of manage the content of the day. But that didn't mean that it lessened. It just meant we had a little bit more flexibility to do things when we thought it was more appropriate. But you were busy all the time on the space station. I remember a lot of people commenting on, when we did space shuttle flights and we were only there for 2 weeks, we were so busy. It was like a sprint. But, being on a space station flight, it's a lot more relaxed and it's more like a marathon. And no, you're just sprinting for a marathon's worth of time, marathon's worth of time. So that also requires you as an individual, as a crew member, and as a crew to find the balance in how the workload throughout the day is managed. Is that kind of what you were looking for there?
Yeah, I was trying
all-
to see how you guys. I heard. Well, I read everything that I would say was possible about astronauts' lives, from Samantha's Cristoforetti book to
Yep.
yours to Terry Virts, and I was like, I've been mapping out your activities from here, and I was trying to see if how was fun. Like I heard about the Fridays that you guys had fun with everyone, learned pieces and bits of language from each other, that you shared food, and I was like, is this really true, or how were Fridays there? Is like a regular Friday go out, or how does it work?
You even you had fun brushing your teeth. I've seen video of that, of spinning around brushing your teeth.
You know what? Everything is fun up there. And I think you have to go in with that attitude, kind of this attitude of adventure, the curiosity, what's it going to be like? It's going to be different, all of how just living there as a human being is going to be different. And it's funny, I show in most of my presentations, I show a picture of my space station crew, and we're all floating in different directions, and we all have these clown noses on. That's because this gentleman, Guy Laliberté, who was the owner founder of Cirque du Soleil, spent about 10 days with us on the station, and he considers himself a clown. But I look at that picture, and what I think about when I see that picture is like, oh my gosh, this is an image of what the best kind of crew, the best kind of team is like. And it's that no matter where you are, you should be having fun. You should be enjoying yourself. You should be experiencing the joy in this place that you're in, where you're with these people. You're all you're all working towards the same positive mission, and you should enjoy that. And then I also cut at the other end, I see, man, every person in that picture, even though they got a clown nose on and they're floating and joking around in all different kinds of directions, I see professionals as well. And I know that the work we need to get done is going to get done. And I also know when I look in their faces that I could trust when it hit the fan, when things did not go as planned, that these guys were going to have my back and that they knew I would have theirs as well. And so this mix of personality and professional, I think that's what you need in the people that are doing things like that. And we're absolutely having fun. And it wasn't just on Fridays. I mean, when the workday shut down, you're floating around the window with your friends, with your crew that's like your family. You're solving the world's problems as you float around the dinner table, listening to everybody else's music, and you're helping each other out through the day. And I don't know, there's just something really extraordinary about it.
Thanks.
Welcome.
That was awesome. Yeah, I love that like mix of professionalism and fun. We try to do that at MoonDAO too. Like
I hope so.
we're pretty, yeah. Well, we're like of the internet. We're internet native, and so the internet culture is just steeped in memes and jokes and comedy. So it's just something that we have to do as I like to think of it as like this is the native environment of the internet, and we're coming to the internet, and we need to coexist with that sort of native energy that exists here, which is just jokes and all of that.
I wanted to point out too, by the way, I mean, you think about all the Apollo astronauts being so serious, or they're, steely-eyed missile men, they called them. But those guys were joking, like, well, at least Buzz and Michael Collins were. I don't know if Neil was on the way to the moon, but we did a Quaker Oats commercial at one point because they found some clips where Buzz, I guess, had been eating oatmeal every day on the way to the moon. And there was a porridge eating contest, and some guy won it. And Michael Collins was like, "Oh, we need to enter Aldrin next time. He's on his 19th bowl." So I just say this because like there's this perception that because they're astronauts and they're doing what is considered serious work, that they're not joking around. Whereas the thing I like about the astronauts that I hang out with is they're all pretty doggone goofy and silly. So I think that's helpful for people to understand they're humans too.
What?
Yes, you're so goofy.
Yep.
All right, so we've got like, I guess, less than a minute. But before we wrap up, I do want to just quickly, say that we are going on a zero gravity flight with Nicole, and it's like I'm incredibly excited. We've chartered the whole zero gravity like airplane, and there's, I think, 30 seats in total, and MoonDAO has 22 of them. With one of them, we're doing a sweepstakes, so anyone can enter inside of our community, and yeah, you have a chance of being selected to go on the zero gravity flight with us. With another one of the tickets, we're doing a social media competition. So all you have to do is use a hashtag. If you click on the thread that's linked on the top here, you'll find the hashtag that you need to use with a 1-minute video of why you should be selected to go on this flight with us. And then the MoonDAO community will actually vote between the videos. Yeah, and then also you can purchase the seats directly. If you are a MoonDAO member, you get a special discount. But yeah, please come out with us. I feel like this is going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity with Nicole Stott and Doug Hurley, both ISS astronauts. So really, they're. I mean, Nicole, you were saying before that you, even now, you feel like going on these zero gravity flights is still like a magical experience. But to us, you guys are the veterans. You guys are the experts, and I think that we're in great hands going up with y'all.
You are. Although I'll
The
tell
thing
you,
I
we're
wanna-
trying to love it as much, experience it too. So it's so fun to be with people like Christina. Remember when Roman, my son, came with us, and so he was so ready. I mean, he loves flying and all of these kinds of things, but I don't think he realized how excited he was until it all started happening. You're getting a flight suit on, you're walking out, and the smile on his face never left. Still, if you bring this up to him, it's like, I think if it could be the greatest thing he thinks he's ever done in his life. And I know so many people that feel that way, because I think beyond the physical experience that you have in this airplane, oh my gosh, I think it just, your brain gets a little bit recalibrated, into opening up to just awesomeness that's around you. And so I can't wait to do this. And Christina, I walked all over you.
No, I just wanted to add, for this flight too, just to make sure people understand, it's not just the flight. Like, what's different about the Space for a Better World flights and why we partnered with you guys is that, people can go on regular flights, but you're getting to do them with Nicole and with Doug and me, but I don't matter as much as these guys. But what I was going to say is we are also tying in a special VIP tour of Johnson Space Center with the astronauts, and also a private dinner the night before the flight. And so you'll get to actually hang out with them really for like a day and a half. This isn't like getting on a flight and getting off. That's what's special about this kind of experience too, so that people understand it's not just going on the flight, although that's the highlight for sure, but it is also getting to have this experience of doing something really special with astronauts that you could only do with us and isn't offered anywhere else pretty much. So I just wanted to drive that home for anybody who's listening, that it isn't just the flight, it is this extra special day and a half experience of these other added items.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've been talking a lot about like how MoonDAO does like in real life events, because we're distributed from all over the world, and it's kind of tricky to get us all in one place. So this is like our version of a conference meetup, but this time it's in zero gravity. So yeah, I'm really excited, not just for the experience, but to be there with a bunch of like-minded people and talk about the future of space travel and how space is going to affect humanity in the next decade and the next 100 years, and really just, you know, have one of the most exciting, I guess, like networking opportunities of all time. You know, talking about professionalism but also fun at the same time. I think that this is like really, yeah, it's both. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
Us too.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're 5 minutes past the hour, so I think we should close this one up. But thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us, and thank you, Christina. Christina's now a veteran of MoonDAO Spaces. I think this is your third one now. So yeah, thanks for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Happy to do it.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
see you soon.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.